We woke up the next day, bright and early in the morning. I lied. It was still dark. It was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. The Egyptologist said that he wanted us to be able to see the sunrise over the desert, and it was amazing watching the sunrise, actually. It was super cool. And it was a long drive. Long drive. Long drive to get to Abu Simbel. Which is odd, because I didn't really feel like it was that long on the way back. I don't know. Anyway, so, first thing we did was we stopped at a rest stop. And, it was like a little kind of tent place. Really cool though, like it was all tiled on the inside, there was like a bar on it, and there was a place to sit down, and, cats and dogs everywhere. And I was like, I need something to wake me the hell up. So, got some coffee. And I was like, yes, please. And that was the first time the entire trip I had had coffee. Because, coffee. But Egyptian coffee, man. I had to have it in Egypt because, yeah, there's nothing like Egyptian coffee. It is interesting. They ground up things. I think there's like a little bit of cocoa in it on the bottom, and then coffee grounds. And then on the top, they pour it over and then seep it over the top of the coffee. It's weird. And eating the bottom of it, I mean, that's how I try to figure out how, what it was made of, is I sat there and kind of ate a little bit of the coffee at the bottom. And I was like, coffee, cocoa, I can't identify everything else. But yeah, we were out in the middle of nothing when we got there. Nothing. Like, seriously, I was like looking around. I'm like, okay, building. And then turned around and nothing was there. So, kind of a boring trip over there. And most of us just kind of slept for the most part. I know I did. It was 4 o'clock in the freaking morning. My body was like, no. But, it's what you do when, you're like not doing anything until you get there. We got to Abu Simbel. And so Abu Simbel was the Sun Temple of Ramses II, right? The Sun Temple? Yeah. I actually learned that it was supposed to be a sort of a temple while I was there. I knew that it was the Temple of Ramses II, but I didn't realize it was a Sun Temple of Ramses II. The inscriptions of the temple, however, they all talk about how Ramses became a god. So, there's like inscriptions all over the wall of things like him giving the gods like some sort of a tribute. And it was like almost every single god he gave a tribute to. I could not believe it. And it was a deep, deep temple too. The interesting fact of this temple actually is not that it's like the Sun Temple, it's that they actually had to take it out of the sand. So there is video of them actually digging the temple up and then pulling it out of the sand and putting the temple back together. It is crazy watching them do that. I could not believe it. So, they had to take it out, readjust things, put everything back together, make the structure perfect. And, it was a temple, so they had to put something over it. And, pretty incredible sight to see. Honestly, like, crazy. Way, way back, though. Way back. So, as we're walking down to go to this place, I end up seeing this guy who was selling hats, and over near Giza, I decided that I needed one. It was so bright in Egypt, so bright. And I'm like, okay, so this is probably going to be something I'm going to need as a necessity at some point. So I started looking at these different hats in these different places along the way, but nothing really struck me until I found this guy. Yeah. I love this hat. This is so cool. We walk past this guy, and he's like, something, 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 I got good deal, something, something. And I'm like, no thanks. And I look down at his hand, and I see this hat. And I was like, So, I kind of slow down a little bit, and I kind of stop, and I look at Danica, and I go, I want that hat. Danica, she looks at me, and she goes, what? And I go, I really want that hat. I want the hat. And Danica was like, well, go find out how much it is. And I was like, yeah? Okay. So I walk over to the guy, and I start talking to him. And the Egyptologist, Mohammed, starts walking over there, and he starts bartering it down. And as he's bartering the hat down, I can hear him, but obviously I can't speak Arabic, so I have no freaking idea what he's saying. But I can understand, the numbers. So as he's sitting there numbering down, I start learning these numbers throughout when we're bartering in Egypt. As we're going down, he finally gets to a point, and it was 40 pounds for the hat. And I was like, oh, that's not horrible. No, it wasn't 40. I think it was 40 pounds. Anyway, so I grabbed the hat, and I put the hat on. Here I am with the hat that's got Ramses on it. I couldn't say no to that. So, yeah, walking around Abu Small with this hat on. Ha. The Egyptologist tells us not to look at anything, but you know me. I'm looking at everything as we're walking down the path, and he's explaining what Abu Small is. I knew what Abu Small was, but again, there are things Lance did not know, and that was the reason Lance was there. It was interesting to hear what Mohammed had to say about it, because a lot of the things that I had learned previously about this place were a little bit wrong, and yeah, notes got taken. Lots. Especially about this one. So finally, we get down to Abu Small. And he still says, don't look. And I'm still sitting here why am I not looking at this? I'm turned around, and I can see the ocean. And we're still, don't look. So he keeps talking. And I sit there, and I'm like, cool. Right? And eventually he goes, okay, now look. And I turned around. And my God, that broke me. I was gone. It was done. It was huge. It was so big. I lost it. The statues were looking right at me. And God, beautiful. So there were things on the side of the statues, and that was usually a little figure, and with Ramses near Abu Simbel, it was Nefertari, and that is a sign that she is going to eternally be with him. One of the statues obviously was no-faced, and the rest of the statues were in prestige condition. The Egyptologist, Mohammed, when I finally got my freaking crap back together, looked at me and he said, okay, this is the thing you need to get. And I kind of looked at him and he goes, on the inside of that door, there is a key. The key of life. What? And, I'm like, was it Ankh on the inside of that door? Right? Once again, still not an Ankh. The entire time I was in Cairo to Aswan, always key of life. Strange. But there's a lot of other things that were a little odd too, so we'll get into that, like maybe after the whole video thing. I immediately tried to figure out what in the world he was talking about. So I started going over to it and looking around and trying to figure out where in the world this Ankh was. Guess what? Sitting in the freaking door to the temple. Pretty funny, actually. So, I look at the key. So I walk up to this guy, look down at the key, and as usual, guy tries shaking me down for money. Picture, picture, picture. And I go, yes. So he looks at me and he says, okay. So I grab the key and I walk with it for a minute and take a couple pictures, right? And as I'm taking these pictures, Lance's brain starts thinking, how the hell do I get this key away from this guy? Now, this happens to be my sister's favorite story of the trip, because Lance probably shouldn't have done that. But, I mean, it's feasible. Anyway, like I said before, the inside of the temple was all about how Ramses became a god. He gave tributes to different gods over and over again, found all the gods, and eventually he had become blessed. So there's one chunk where he goes from being Ramses to being the god Ramses. And it's a really impressive thing to actually read, because you kind of had to chunk it together. It was all over the walls, all over it was everywhere. So, unfortunately, it wasn't in the same freaking place. Basically, I just stuck to walls. Because, looking at the pillars were cool. But ultimately, I did not freaking have time to look at the pillars. So, I grabbed Danica, and I was like, hey, can you, get a picture of me here? And then Danica, she was like, hey, you want to get a picture in here? And I was like, yeah, totally not even thinking, just trying to read walls. So I told my sister, what was going on these walls, and Danica kind of objected to it. But I knew what was going on. I did. I knew what the hell was going on. So, the last couple of minutes of being in that temple, Danica was like, you've only got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else that you want to do left? And I was like, there is. I've just got to figure out how to do it. Well, I only had a couple minutes. And I only had about 40 pounds left. Danica told me that I probably should have tipped the person like 50 pounds, but I was like, all he did was take a picture of me. Like, why am I tipping him so much? You know? I'm like, no, I gave him 10 because that's all he did. He took a freaking picture and that was all that I had. So, with that 40 pounds, walked back up to this guy. And he's like, picture, picture, picture with this key. Giant gold freaking key. Right? Picture. And as you sit, and as this dude sat there trying to hand me this freaking key and said picture, I handed him 40 pounds, grabbed the key, and booked it into the temple as fast as I could. That's right. I freaking ran. I ran so freaking fast into that temple, he lost track of me. I kind of meandered around on the inside of the temple for a little while, and eventually got back into, where the two different corridors were. But the one corridor is the one that I was trying to get to. So, I'm walking to this corridor, and I've got this key. And I'm like, I finally freaking got this thing in here. So, on the inside of this corridor was Ramses and 3 other gods. And they were sitting down. Well, as the walls inscribe, what do you do when you see the gods? You kneel down. You offer them a tribute. And that's exactly what I did. I couldn't, unfortunately, reach the pedestal in the middle of it. And I wasn't sure if I would have gotten in trouble had I been, like, trying to put my cards on the pedestal. I probably should have tried, because that would have been super cool as a picture, you know. But I took the cards, I took the rest of the deck, and I put the rest of the deck on the top of the key. That means all of that vibration from all of that energy on the inside of this temple is going straight to these cards. They don't feel the same after I did that. So, I got done with what I was doing, and of course, you know, that was just the first thing. That was actually what the third thing I did with my cards in that entire trip, which is super cool. Got done with what I was doing, and right as I got done with it, right as I stopped saying what I was saying, right as I opened my eyes, dude walks up, and guess what he says? He goes, picture, picture. I take my cards, put my cards back on the inside of the case, put them in my pocket, give this dude back the key, and I went, nope, and walked off. Why is this so funny? As my sister puts it, she can only imagine the look on this dude's face as some weirdo walks up, hands him 40 pounds, grabs the key, runs into the temple, and he's just standing there like, what just happened? Completely dumbfounded. I didn't even look back. Like, I just went. As fast as I could, just went. And I could just imagine the look on that guy's face as I did that. You know? It was awesome. So, I got what I wanted out of it. So I got what I wanted out of it, at least. The picture, the ritual, done. I probably should have done a video of it, that probably would have been a little more appeasing to me. I wish I would have done a lot more than just what I had videos of. But I didn't really have a lot of time to think about it. So maybe I'll try to do a video later of the ritual I did on the inside of the temple so that I can show everybody what I did. That'd probably be feasible. I left that temple, and of course, you know, got to Nefertari. Nefertari was freaking beautiful. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. I love those two temples. They were just so cool. And I had taken pictures of just about everything I could inside of that temple too. But, you know, it wasn't nearly as cool as seeing, like, you know, Ramses turn into a god. Still, freaking awesome. So we get out of there, and we're walking back up. My God, it was a long walk. Path around Abu Simbel was long. And I had looked back and taken a picture of the path because I was like, good God, how long is this thing? That means the temple is that long. And I just walked into this long temple and booked it across. So, you know, I was pretty proud of myself for not wheezing and hacking as I was like, you know, is this game worth it? Oh, yeah, it is. We get up there, I start like taking pictures of like, you know, they were waiting on the inside of like the little temple area. And watching the video of how they like took it out of the sand and put it back together. And I was taking pictures of the cards with like little miniature places. I gotta say, had I had a way to get miniatures to Egypt, I would have taken a couple of my scarab occults and totally just been like taking over this place. Because, my God, there was a lot of miniature things there. Like, every one of these places had some miniature. Yeah. Know that now. So, eventually we get done at Abu Simbel and drive back home. And the first thing I mentioned was I wanted to try to find a place to get my Egyptian robe. Of course, he knew a place to go, thank God. And this was really important because I had never actually had an actual Egyptian robe to go along with, like, anything I had. I've had the headdress, I've had masks, I've had costumes. I've never actually had an actual Egyptian robe. It was actually one of the first things I put on my list of what I need to get while I'm in Egypt. So thank God he knew where the hell to get one. We went to this place and I started like looking at a couple of them. And the one that really struck me was the one that looked kind of like vinyl. I guess it's just my taste. Yeah. Once you're goth, you're always goth. It's pretty cool. I mean, last video, you saw it. And, you know, I was like, pretty awesome, right? The guy took a rug and put it over my head and put something on the top of my head. And I just wasn't feeling that, you know, because there was a reason I was buying this thing. And, so, you know, I was like, don't worry about the hat. I'm good without the hat, right? And we get out of there. We get back to the hotel. And again, hotel was super cool. Walk back and get onto a boat. And the boat, it's actually going around the island down the Nile. We were on our way to an island. I can't remember what the name of the island was, but they had a botanic garden there now.
Surround yourself, they are
Sitting on the Nile was the most relaxing thing ever. Just until I got motion sickness. I actually figured it out when you're on a boat. When I was, I think it was about 19, we were in Mexico, and I ended up having to lay down on the boat because something in my head wasn't doing it right. Probably has something to do with all the surgeries I had on my inner ear. But so as it's rocking, you start getting kind of gyrated or something, and yeah, bad. So what do? You lay down for a minute and you stare at the ceiling. It works. Lie down for a sec, stared at the ceiling, got right back up, went to the front of the boat, started taking videos again. Yeah. So this was a great one. We get into the botanic garden and we're walking around. Flowers, amazing flowers, even for a obviously very downtime of the garden. Amazing flowers. A lot of it was kind of shot. It's probably the season, I'm assuming. But some of the flowers, they were thriving and beautiful, gorgeous. Yellows and purples and pinks everywhere. And as we're walking around, these two dogs come up. And the cutest little dogs ever. The one is really spastic and is like wagging his tail and it's like, jumping up and down. The other one comes up and is just kind of sniffing at me. And I look down at the puppy and go, oh, hello to pupper. Right? So, sit there and pet the dog for a little while, right? And the tour guide, he was like, no, don't pet dog. And we all kind of look at him with this odd look. Like, what are you talking about? It's just a freaking dog. No. And, my sister, she's like, he's worried that we're going to get hurt if we pet a dog. And I'm like, seriously? She's like, yeah. What he doesn't know is that we have dogs at home that are our pets. I'm like, yeah, like 3, 4, 6. And I'm like, and a guinea pig? So, yeah, of course. No worry at all. These little puppies, they jumped all over us and played with us and pet them, and they were cute little dogs. They had to be owned by somebody, probably somebody that was like, on the inside of the Botanic Garden, or the owner of said Botanic Garden. Cute dogs. The one really liked me, and the one kept following me around because I sat there and pet him every time he stopped. And man, I would have taken that dog home with me. Adorable dog. But sadly, can't take everything home with you, right? We leave the Botanic Garden. The tour guide goes down the steps, looks over at all of us and says, "Touch the Nile." Me, I'm thinking, there's a reason why we can't drink any of the water in Egypt, right? I'm just thinking, like, should we be touching the Nile? So, apparently touching the Nile is good luck. So what did I do? Well, obviously I did exactly what I was going to. I was going to go down the steps and I was going to touch the Nile. We get back on the boat and the wind current stops. So our hotel, I think, is that big tower right there. Because I think we're going to be stopping at that dock. This hotel is literally located in the middle of this island inside of the Nile. It is freaking awesome. So we're pretty much just sitting there on the Nile. And I'm bouncing around, taking pictures and doing videos and, again, motion sickness. I'm gonna have to try to find something the next time, maybe like a bracelet or something. There's gotta be something out there that'll like stop my motion sickness. Pill. But, it wasn't horrible. I actually ended up finding out that what happened was my body was not liking the fact that I had been staying awake all this time and then going back to sleep at the wrong time, because I'd never been on seas internationally before, and it's just something I'm gonna have to get used to. But this actually, the first time you do it, it causes something called vertigo. Vertigo causes dizzy spells, motion sickness, and excessive amounts of forgetfulness. Basically, your brain is still thinking it's asleep when it's not. And that is the explanation for me skipping tracks and getting weird motion sickness in places. I did not think that it was that bad, but apparently it was. Gotta watch that next time, wherever I end up. So, we get back to the hotel. It's pretty dark, and it was pretty much us on our own at this point. So, Danica decides that she wants to go to this restaurant that's down the street from where we were. Way down the street from where we were. So it was quite a walk. Being able to see like all the things on the side of the road were pretty cool, and being able to see all the like different places and, the stores and stuff, because apparently the stores are really what make it. We walked a long way. It was a long, long way. And eventually we made it to this place that I think it was a hotel. I'm not quite sure. But they had a restaurant, and the restaurant was in the back near the pool. So inside of this restaurant was just absolutely awesome. And it was bright and glamorous. And the inside was it was super cool. They had like a library on one place. They had like a store. It was like a jewelry store of some sort on one place, and it was awesome. I mean, it was cool, but it wasn't nearly as cool as crossing the Nile to get to a hotel. Yeah, because had we been there, I wouldn't be able to like sit around and see the Nile, right? Um, the food was amazing. As always, I got a Sakara beer because, I mean, Sakara beer, right? And pretty relaxing there too. We ended up leaving, and as we're leaving the hotel, I'm taking pictures of all the cool things and taking pictures of like, the waterways and so on. As I'm taking pictures of all of the things on the inside of this hotel, I miss a step and my foot goes straight down into the water of a fountain. Yeah, I wasn't paying much attention to what I was doing at all. Um, I was a little distracted. So, got a good laugh out of that. My foot was all like crazy wet, soggy the way back home. Yeah, funny as hell. It only stayed that way for like a couple minutes though. I mean, Egypt is pretty warm as it is, so not a terrible problem. um, Getting back was interesting. People look at you like you're insane for walking down the street, or a bunch of people in taxis, or a bunch of people with like whatever they're doing. I guess there's like a bike bus. There's a couple of, what do they call them, tuk tuk, little motorcycle scooter things. Yeah, they all bug you about it, but you're just like, no, 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 and just keep freaking walking. It's kind of obnoxious. um Still, great place. So we stopped at a couple stores along the way. One of them was a scuba gear store, and there was a store down below it that had some stuff I was just staring at, statues and whatever. Um, Nothing that like really hit me very hard, but I was trying not to overdo it, and yeah, really cool. Get back to the ferry, go back home, and you know they went to sleep. I actually ended up, when they went back to sleep, I sat down. There was a statue in the middle of the hotel that night, and I sat right next to it and got my headphones on. And I mean, I was not going to pass up the chance to actually meditate in Egypt. That's no. So, sat there until like, the meditation music died and meditated for a little while. Um, Went back into my room afterwards and stared and sat around and stared at the Nile for a good like hour, because the next day we left and we were on our way to Luxor.